Are you an enterprise dissatisfied with overpriced analytics software that can't keep up with modern data? If so, then GravWell is the solution for you. GravWell is an unstructured data analytics platform for enterprises who demand total data visibility across their network. GravWell lets your security team go beyond the SIM and fuse data sources to correlate and answer questions you didn't know needed to be asked. Go to gravwell.io/Security Weekly for an unlimited data trial and gain uncompromising visibility today. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is flat networks inside the cloud and data center that allow threats to move laterally and compromise vulnerable targets. But microsegmentation using traditional firewalls is too complex and time-consuming. There's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation. Using the identity of machines and software that are communicating, Edgewise offers the strongest protection that adapts automatically to changes. Protect any application in any cloud without any changes to your network by visiting securityweekly.com/Edgewise. NetSparker, the developers of a comprehensive automated web security platform that includes web vulnerability scanning, assessment, and management. NetSparker's desktop and cloud-based security solutions employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities and provides a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at securityweekly.com/NetSparker. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Quick announcement: join Amit Barakat, co-founder and CEO of Perimeter 81, and myself for a technical deep dive even into the problems inherent in legacy VPN technology. We will explore solutions for the modern workforce and how momentum toward a perimeterless architecture is helping redefine the future of cybersecurity. Register now by going to securityweekly.com/perimeter81 and hear me tell some stories of old about struggles with VPNs. This segment is sponsored by PlexTrack. Please visit securityweekly.com/PlexTrack. And joining us for this segment is none other than founder and CEO Dan DeCloss from PlexTrack. Hey. Dan, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. Always good to be on.
Dan, it's good to have you back. And I'm glad we're talking about this topic today because I thought it was a really great use case to include in your product and for your users that hits, I think a bunch of different audiences. And that feature is Runbooks, which is something I wish I was better at documenting some of my own stuff. It kind of drives my teammates nuts because they're like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know, like I ran that bunch of commands and then like it worked. And like, did you document that? I'm like, yeah, there might be like a Google Doc or a text file somewhere on my laptop. But Runbooks are a better way.
You're referring to.
Exactly.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Joff. Oh, Joff is here. You weren't up on my screen and slightly obscured by a camera. Joff, welcome.
Thank you. I was just calling Paul out on the chat. I'm like, aren't you going to introduce me, dude? Come on. I'm here. I'm glad to be here.
Joff is here. Thank you for the reminder. Yes. And so, Dan, I mean, over to you. I didn't know if you wanted to create a run book, if you wanted us to shout out some things that we might put in a run book off the top of our heads.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think you're exactly right in terms of like what the purpose of Runbooks really is, right? So the purpose of Runbooks is to be able to document like the techniques and procedures that you execute during an engagement. So having a consistent methodology. A lot of pen testers will utilize them, as like a checklist of like, hey, these are the things that we're always going to cover when we execute a test. And then going deeper, what we took the concept of Runbooks is not just having a methodology for a checklist kind of capability, but also being able to facilitate those tabletop exercises between the red and the blue teams, or an incident response scenario, as well as the true purple teaming exercise where you can sit there. Both the red and the blue teams can say, hey, here's the activity that we're conducting. The blue team can come in and say, like, yeah, we identified that. Here are the logs, or like, we're not seeing it at all. And then the nice thing about, with the Runbooks module within PlexTrack is that then you can submit that as an engagement and automatically get the report generated and normalized, just like you would all of your other pen test reports or vuln scans and those kinds of things, and now be able to conduct real-time analytics. So it's one step further to keeping things consistent, right, in terms of how you're going to conduct your engagements, whether they're external or internal. having all that information documented, so you as you conduct new techniques, you can keep your knowledge base, so to speak, up to date on those kinds of things, and then truly start to show effectiveness from the blue team side of, hey, what things are working, what things aren't, in terms of our security investments. So we can either go back to the vendor and say, like, hey, by the way, we've tested this EDR against 5 different runbooks and it hasn't caught anything, or it's caught 80% of the stuff, but that 20% is pretty important. So do we need to get a different EDR, or do we need to configure something differently? Those kinds of things. So that's really kind of like the goal of Runbooks is really to have that consistency across the different types of engagements that you might be conducting in a proactive state.
And can you associate runbooks or specific parts of a runbook with your vulnerability results automatically? In other words, if I see a vulnerability report and it says running Docker as root, right? And then there's like a runbook that says, or is that more of a remediation?
That's more the remediation, but you certainly, at least within Plextrack, you can tag that information. So you could say, like, hey, this is related to, some kind of defensive component like configuration management or something like that, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the runbook would be how I test to make sure that I am not running it as root, and there's different.
Yeah. So you would have a little step like, am I running Docker as root? And if so, you say, okay, include that as a finding in the report, right? So.
And you use Docker, right, in your own product?
Yep.
And not running as root, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah. Always trying to improve our config management wherever possible, right?
Yeah.
So
that problem's gotten slightly better though. A lot of more people are catching on to not running as root. Just as a sidebar, is kind of what I've observed.
Yeah,
Slowly.
and then we've been able to deploy into Kubernetes now, so that provides some additional protections and
headaches.
Like that, so. And headaches, yeah. The more complex, the more you're gonna have some frustrations for sure. So yeah, but yeah, I'd be happy to dive in and show Runbooks, or if there's thoughts or questions around the topic, for sure. I think it's an important topic from as we mature as an industry, right? Keeping people consistent, with the knowledge sharing and bringing junior testers up, from improving their capabilities and also helping the blue team members really understand these are the actions that attackers are taking, right? And the nice thing too is that MITRE has released the adversary emulation plans, so you can execute those emulation plans now as a runbook within Plextrack. So it starts to help you identify these are the things that we know are happening that are known signatures in the wild. Can we at least start there as an organization and detect these things and consistently start to improve on them before we even get into the more nuanced techniques and tactics, right?
Well, the purple team runbook is interesting because can be a red team technique with a blue team technique in explanation of, okay, well, if the red team did this, make sure you go check here, here, and here. 1, to see if you're vulnerable, and 2, then to see if you can detect that attack here, here, and here. Is that kind of your vision for the purple team runbooks?
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler?
No, that's great that the MITRE stuff is integrating now. The place to share runbooks and kind of build a community around different tactics, different techniques, and then, what do we do as a community to protect against this? That's kind of one of the big things. Like from just an IR perspective, like if we're seeing this particular piece of ransomware or this particular TTP, how do we address that very quickly? And if you build that into the runbooks, like you said, from a purple team standpoint or a red team emulation standpoint, that's great. Like it keeps things consistent and testable with metrics. But from a blue team standpoint and an IR standpoint, that also allows you to very effectively start to look at how other people have dealt with this and hopefully collaborate and contribute back to that as things evolve and change.
Oh, great points, Tyler. Sorry for the silence.
Yeah. It's like
I was digesting.
Agree.
Yeah, I was digesting that information. Yeah.
No, so Dan, do you have any other places that you are going to see from a community standpoint to kind of share some of these runbooks outside of MITRE? Is there like open source ones currently, and then is there anything with inside of kind of the plans for PlexTrack to build a community around different runbooks and what they're going to integrate?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great point, because we are just now releasing within Runbooks. So you can see here, you can import and export Runbooks, right? So within Plex, let me switch screens, because I know this screen has been having some resolution issues here. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so that's the idea, is that we really would love to be able to build a community around being able to execute these things quickly and easily. So let me share this screen here and see if this, and just let me know if this works better. All right, can you see that? Okay. So within Runbooks, so we basically break it down by different methodologies. So it comes pre-built with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and from the procedures perspective, we bring in the Atomic Red Team, Red Canaries, Atomic Red Team procedures. So that's a great open source tool to start with, and so it gives you a way to document at least testing against those techniques and procedures. You can obviously build your own within the Runbooks, but then I built out a couple other ones because I think these are good use cases. So and would be able to help start building a community driven concept around Runbooks. And so now we support within Runbooks, we support the ability to export them out and be able to import them in. And the nice thing is they're all in the YAML format. They're in a similar structure to the YAML format that MITRE has put out and Atomic Red Team has put out for their procedures as well as their emulation plans. So yes, we're definitely eager to get this into the hands of the community. Start building Runbooks around. Hey, these are the techniques that we're doing in our environment. And if you want to share those, you can. So the nice thing is that it provides that flexibility as well. So I'll kind of just dive in. Like you see, like we've got different methodologies that we've built out, and within those, you can go to the specific Runbooks for that, or just see all the possible Runbooks that exist. And it kind of mentions the different techniques or tactics that are being covered within this Runbook. So like from a MITRE perspective, I'm a big proponent of start small, start doing, if you don't feel as like a mature organization, really start small in your testing, to be able to validate specific things early. And so you don't have to like boil the ocean or, throw the whole MITRE ATT&CK framework into an engagement. So I just kind of built out one based on Fin6, which is MITRE's most recent, or the only, I think at this point, the only adversary emulation plan that is out. And I was just like, hey, let's just talk about the discovery techniques. So when we come in here, we can just start the engagement. We can assign it to a different client. So we'll put it into the Security Weekly. We could even tag it, right? So we could say, hey, this is an adversarial emulation engagement. And then it just plops you straight into the engagement, right? So these are all the techniques that are going to be executed. It's based on what we built out and standardized in the Runbook. You don't have to execute all of these, and in fact, you can come in and you can add or remove any procedures that you want within the Runbook. But these are all going to be then documented as part of the report, not only in the back end with the procedures that were executed, but also what you decide to determine is a finding within the Runbook engagement. So we can come in here. It gives us the execution steps to be able to know, hey, we're enumerating all accounts. Within the domain, we're going to execute these commands, and so when we click this, it just automatically shows, hey, like I've done this step, and then I'm going to come in and say like whether it was successful or not, and I can attach evidence. I can attach a screenshot if I want to. Let's see if my browser is going to behave. So like we could attach a few screenshots. We could provide captions as well, and we could even toggle these to say, hey, when this report gets submitted, go ahead and attach these as a finding to the report, right? So then we can also, and this is another nice thing, we can also specify what assets that we want to tie this to. So let's see. Maybe I don't have any assets in your client. So what we can do is we can create one, right? So we can create an asset. We can say, Dan's server, We'll go ahead and just create that right away. And so then we can say like, hey, this, maybe I'll create a second one just to kind of highlight that we've got, two different ones here, right? So we've got server 1 and server 2. And we're executing these procedures against both of them. Maybe it succeeded on one but failed on the other, right? So we can go ahead and say like, hey, this one is going to be an affected asset within the finding. So we've toggled this to go ahead and add that to the report. But then we can also add evidence specific to the asset itself, right? So you could say, hey, ponage, boom, we nailed it. Something like this. Right, and you can add multiple evidences, sets of evidence for a specific asset. One other thing I forgot to kind of mention is that you can also assign operators. So we can say, hey, the admin is going to be the red team, and the demo user is going to be the blue team. So now you kind of know who's working on what, for this specific for this specific procedure. And then, we can say, hey, the red team, we've kind of done everything we can, and actually you can add procedure logs. You can say like timestamp of events, and add different logs as you keep going through. Hey, these are all the activities that we were executing and things like that. We could specify what the attack source was. So whatever we want to say is in like IP address or source attack, and any notes, right? So 1 for 2 ain't bad, right? And so this just automatically saves as you're running through the procedure. From the blue team side, they can come in and they can say, okay, I see that it was partially successful. That these were the commands that were executed. So we're going to go start and search through our logs, see if we can find any evidence about these actions being run on these assets, right? So then we can go in and we say, okay, we did forensically log this, but we didn't actually alert on it, right? So we might say like, here's we might attach our Splunk logs or something like that, and you say Splunk time timestamp correlates. Something like that, and you can add in your own timestamps as to when things were coming in. You could paste the log into here. You could add it as evidence. So it really is meant to facilitate being able to consolidate all the activity that's going on and any evidence around this procedure, and ultimately the full run book, that you can just execute this as you go. Right. So then, we can come in and say, okay, this procedure is done. We've marked this as complete, and we're going to go ahead and include it as a finding into the report. So from here, we can keep cycling through the different procedures and just keep rolling with the punches and executing everything as we go. When we come back to the overview, though, you can see, here's the status updates of like here are the users that are working on this procedure. Here are here's the data around whether it's included as a finding or not. And then this little check mark just indicates that, hey, we consider this to be completed, that this procedure is done. And so this makes it nice from just an engagement collaboration perspective as well, is that if you have multiple people, from the red or the blue side, responsible for, executing these procedures or putting in blue team notes for these procedures, if you see that, hey, no one has picked up, no one's been assigned to the ad finding of, this one right here, right? So we can come in and say, okay, I'll go ahead and assign myself, to this as the blue team member, so that as people come in and go from the engagement, you start to get, that ability to work through all the issues or, and continue to conduct the engagement itself, right? And so now from here, I'm not going to run through all of these procedures, but you can see like the list of options just from the procedures for these are ways that discovery can happen within the network, right? You may even want to narrow this down to maybe like just do 4 or 5, right? So we pulled in all the Atomic Red Team procedures for discovery within just a select few techniques as well, right? So it makes it nice that you can start to, drill down and narrow down exactly what you're looking to test, and keep that consistent as well. So once we feel like we're done with the engagement, and I only included one issue as a finding, let me go ahead and just make another one.
So Dan, the idea is that there's pre-canned runbooks, but It sounds like you're building a run book kind of on the fly while you're doing a test. Like, oh, I did that. All right, let me put that in the run book, right? You can kind of do it as you go as well.
Yep, absolutely. And you can always create, if we were to jump over here to procedures, these are all the procedures that exist. So you could come in and create your own and assign it to a specific tactic. So if I wanted to say like, Dan's custom discovery, technique, right? And we could say, DD001 or something like that, right? And we could say like, this is really new stuff. And then we could even say like, here are the execution steps, and map -A, right? Something like that. And then we can assign that to a technique. So we could say like, okay, let's do,
script kiddie 101.
Yeah, something like information, system information discovery, right? Yeah, and then we can assign that to a tactic, up the chain. So we just keep going like discovery, system service discovery, right? Oh, sorry. I already did that. So then, we can come back in. Let me come back to that engagement. Which one was it? This one here. Should be able to go ahead and just add that in, right? So. So right there. So now I can go ahead and add that into the engagement, and I can go ahead and execute it, right? So I can say, yep, from the red team perspective, ran nmap -A, and we're off to the races. So it makes it flexible, like, mid engagement, if you all of a sudden discover like, hey, I just learned this new technique or this new exploit, I can go ahead and document that right away. Mm-hmm. And now I can reuse it, across different run books, different engagements. So it makes it, at least from the tester side, we always struggled, having a good way to document like techniques that we were conducting. I was a web app pen tester. And so, like how did like a new, new SQL injection techniques, new cross-site scripting techniques are coming out all the time. And how do you keep that list up to date? And this is one way you can do that, as well as now sharing with the blue team right away. Like this is what we did. Last time we didn't do that. This time we did, and this one succeeded. So. Yeah, and then when we, let's see, I'll go ahead and add that one as well as a finding just for fun. So we can do that. And then when we submit the engagement, this is what's nice is that, it comes back to that normalized view of PlexTrack. It's going to tabulate all the information, add the 3 findings that we specified as findings. On the back end, you have access to the data of what procedures were executed, and our plans for that are to bring that into the analytics module, where you can then start to show your trend and your success and fail rates on certain runs of Runbooks. And that will be very handy from being able to show whether you're improving or not, based on consistent runbook execution. So if we come in here, you'll notice, I forget which one it was, but we can do the readout view. Here's my procedure. It automatically tags it with the IDs of the techniques and tactics that were associated from the MITRE perspective, which comes in handy on the analytics side. Here's those screenshots that we added in as evidence. They automatically find their way into the finding. Here's all the information about what was executed, the notes that the red team took, the execution steps, the outcomes from both the red and the blue, all the information that we started logging, including the server. And then here's where that evidence for that specific asset will reside. So it's a nice consolidated way to track all this information.
Dan, are there any shortcuts that you've kind of built in to be able to see what I'm doing or save what I'm doing and then automatically import it into PlexTrack? Or have you thought about things along those lines? Like
I'm not sure what I mean.
Can I just send you my command history or export
and map output or Scythe integrations?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like a Metasploit command, like logging or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, standard within PlexTrack, we can import things from tools, right? So we can, Scythe is a great example. We can import from Scythe, and those come in automatically. We're working on bringing Scythe campaigns into the Runbooks capability, but you can bring those into a standard report. And then if you're a Runbooks customer, Runbooks is an additional module within PlexTrack, so it's additionally licensed. But if you're a Runbooks customer, you'll also have access to be able to, just within a standard report, say you weren't doing an engagement, but like you were in a report, you could specify what procedures were executed within that run or this engagement as well. So you'll have some of that availability as well. In terms of being able to bring in additional procedures, that's the concept of the runbook, or the import of the runbooks. Because when you import a runbook, it has all those procedures in them. Mm-hmm. So I guess from maybe I'm not understanding your question totally, but like you would create a runbook, you could export that out and then have somebody else import it in, or pull one from we'll have runbooks documented in our library on the documentation page of our website. So we'll continue to build out runbooks that people can bring into their instances of PlexTrack.
I gotcha. Yeah. So a runbook is more of a manual creation process.
Today. And we'd always take feedback on what people would want to see, from an automated perspective of bringing that in. Yeah. It would just have to fit the format for the import is really, what you would need to do. So.
Didn't you say earlier you're looking for folks to help contribute runbooks to make available to import?
Yeah, that's our goal. We need to publish the format is where we're at. So we're still in
a little detail there.
Yeah, we're still in testing. I'll kind of stop sharing my screen here. We're still in testing of making sure the imports are working correctly and things like that. And then we'll publish the format as well as some of our standard run books that we'll publish on our website. They'll be similar. Go ahead.
Sorry, is it just like a JSON format?
It's a YAML format.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar. If you were to look at like the Fin6 adversary emulation plan, or the YAML files for the different atomic red team procedures or atomics, it's gonna look very similar to that.
Yeah, well, that's all. I mean, the fact it's in a standard format means you could write code to basically.
And if when you get the repository out, that's going to be like the auditing, holy grail, because I always wanted things like that to sit down when you walk in and somebody says, "Oh, we're using this." If there were some run books already built for that, it would save you so much time in having to write out. I mean, I remember walking in and sometimes they wouldn't tell you what they had, and you walk in and go, "Oh, this is a Windows NT shop." And it would be nice to have a pre-built run book for that. And then we would literally be running out and sitting in the car with me trying to think up all the things we really ought to check on that kind of system that we didn't realize we were going to run into that day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the perfect use case, right? Is that, hey, we now have this repository and this knowledge base of the things that we should be testing. And yeah, like you said, it's kind of validated against the community. They can say, no, we actually think you should add this, or this one's kind of outdated. This is never gonna fly in modern organizations or whatnot. So
and it helps you it would help you remember the things that, I mean, I like I say, I sat in a lot of rental cars where somebody went in and they said, "Oh, it's this," and you got in there and went, that's not what that is, and is that is that a mainframe sitting there, and then you're like back in the car going, "Oh, geez, what do I remember about AS400?" And if you could go get some run books that people had contributed, it would really give you 80%.
At least a starting point.
Yeah, I mean, it might give you 80% or even more of what you really needed, and it helps you not forget stuff, because you could also do a comparison then with what you're already doing and say, I'm doing an AS400. I know a lot about AS400, but here this guy knows a lot more than I do.
But then I think the true value is constantly enriching them.
Yeah.
Each time you do a test, you might learn something a little new and updated, and then it's a constant record.
We did new run books every time. We didn't just go in there and say it's a rote run book. Even if it's the same system at the same place, we go back a quarter later to look at the same thing. we did a new run book. But if you had one to start from and go, what are the changes? You could almost do a differential run book then and go, what has changed? How has it improved? What are other things I need to look at that I've learned about since then? I went home and said, wow, I really need to read up on Rack F. I remember doing that one time and going, I remember that, but wow. And then, next time you've got a place to start and you can look at the differential.
That must have been an interesting, fun read, huh?
Well, at the time, it probably was.
Yeah.
I think the educational aspect is really an important. There's only going to be a more shortage of talent in our industry, right? Both from the testing side and the defenders side, and so being able to educate the defenders, more rapidly and quickly on what are the techniques that we need to try and be able to understand deeper, and even be able to start learning how to execute these techniques so that as they have time, they can go ahead and test these things out themselves, to stay in that proactive continuous testing mindset. And that's really one of the major,
and it will over time it could become a corpus essentially, so that in the future 10 years from now somebody says I really need to look at these old things because I just ran into that. If you have this big repository of stuff, you can go back and pull things together that you may have
Except at the end of every run book, it's like, if you still didn't get in, ask Tyler for O-Day.
Exactly.
It's at the end of every run book.
Yeah, and I'll highlight, that we have, you'll have the ones that you ran before, right? So if you come in and you say, okay, this was what I ran before, I'm in again next year, I can go ahead and copy this engagement. So I can say hey, what do I want to call it next as year 2 or whatever. And select the same client or a different one if needed. And now I can start a fresh set of a fresh run of the run book, knowing these are the procedures that I executed last year. I could add and subtract as necessary, but you start to build that history over time as well, which can be very valuable from your trending analysis.
Well, great for internal red teams. I mean, external as well, but internal is just taking back. You actually took me, for whatever reason, reminded me when it would do security assessments and sometimes pen testing of the different departments within the university. Sometimes it would be a cycle. I would do one, and then I'd be like, you need to go fix all that stuff. And then they come back, a few months later, and they're like, hey, I'm better. I'm like, cool, I'll go and do it again. It'd be nice to pull that run book, run through it again, and then adjust some of your techniques. Right?
As a risk tool as well, it might be nice to look over time and say, look at how they improved, over all these run books.
Much larger our run book got with all these different things we tried.
I think that would be a really nice addition to that as well. So you could pull that down and look at it.
Yeah, and that's effectively, I guess I only have one finding, but that's what you can do here too. I think what did I tag that as? Adversarial, or no, that was at the report level, right? So if we came into reports on our analytics and we said, show me all the reports that were tagged as adversary emulation, now you can start to see these trends over time. So these are the 2 different clients that we've run adversary emulations on, and within Security Weekly, as we build out more tests, month over month or week over week, you'll start to see, hey, when we ran it, I identified 3 findings. The next time it was 2, right? And so you can start to see that trending analysis straight with our analytics platform.
Sweet.
So, yeah. But yeah, we're excited about it. The team's worked hard, and we've taken a lot of the customer feedback as well. So just a lot of continued improvements within the Runbooks module specifically. But the thing that we're excited about is the ability to import and export. So if the demo gods allow me to be able to show you what the YAML file looks like, I will.
And that Fin 6 or 7, that was from a MITRE runbook?
Yeah, so that was MITRE just recently released their adversary emulation plans, and I can pull that up for you guys. Oops. So they've launched this adversary emulation library, right? And so their plan is that they're going to build out these emulation plans that kind of run through all the different techniques for these different actors or these different APTs. So they started with Fin 6, which is it's a threat actor based on like ransomware and things like that. I think more targeted for the financial industry. And they have the whole background on it here. And so then you can come into the emulation plan. And so then, we support, I'm almost done with an import script to actually support this specific format, as opposed to the format that we have for emulation plan or for Runbooks. But basically it follows this structure. So you'll be able to see that, I'll pull this over here. So we've got, you can see this is the format for our YAML file, right? We've got the different tactics. So if you didn't have tactics defined within your instance of PlexTrack, it will bring those in. It'll bring in the different techniques and then all of the procedures, right? So it's a standard format and will allow, the community to build them out. If you wanted to build them out in YAML, you can, but then, be able to share them across the community as well. Even if you're not a PlexTrack customer, you could still have access to the Runbooks to be able to parse into another tool or something like that.
You guys have been busy.
Yeah, the sun never sets in PlexTrack, right?
See what kind of sweatshop you run there in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, I've got this beautiful, Boise, sunset behind me, right?
Mm-hmm. Just missing the snow.
Yeah, we've had a really nice fall, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's 70 today. It's supposed to snow tomorrow. I'm excited.
It sounds like, hey, you guys got some New England weather over there. That's a trick we pull all the time. That's awesome. Dan, any questions for Dan?
So I had a comment. I mean, as we talk about Runbooks, which brings me back to my mainframe days, what we were doing on the 4381. The term Runbook doesn't really justify what you have here. I know it's technically what it is, but it just feels like it's an understatement and a half.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Lee. It's more tightly integrated than I thought. Like you were tagging stuff and really integrating into the PlexTrack experience, which I thought was really cool. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think I think the goal is definitely to make things more efficient for the really PlexTrack's mission is to keep people focused on getting the real cybersecurity work done, right? So the more you can stay close together and collaborating, getting the evidence in a single spot, and then normalizing the data to where you can do analytics on it. You can export those reports to show to your leadership, the better, right? So.
But that's really the differentiator for me, Dan, in your product in the market to kind of shift from a little more of the technical stuff, right? Is that, sure, we can create documentation, but what you've created is a platform not just for documentation, but for collaboration, correlation, and constant metrics over the assessment activities that are happening.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think one thing that we didn't highlight that, I think people by now know that you can do in PlexTrack is once you get it to that report state, it doesn't end there within PlexTrack. Now you can assign those issues as risks or, items to the people that are responsible for fixing them, and they can make their comments and collaborate on the fixes. And then as they resolve the issues, it comes back as a, status update of closed in PlexTrack. And so now you have the analytics on here's when it was reported, here's when it got picked up, and here's the trending analysis for how long it takes to get these things closed out on average, right? So, So truly from like soup to nuts is our goal of helping everybody stay efficient and productive in getting the real work done.
It really is the missing link inside of I believe the offensive space, and not only the offensive space, but like defensive teams. This is the tool to get your offensive red team, get your pen test value out of whatever you're doing. Even if your pen test companies aren't using that as an internal team, you should be using this and forcing them to do the reporting. So you've got metrics, you've got analytics, you've got the ability to correlate events and kind of have a baseline to understand how your assessment went and where it needs to go in the future. Really, and from an offensive standpoint, if you're not using this tool, I'm sorry, but like you're behind the times and way past not doing anybody any good. Like a Word document as a report is not fixing this industry, and we've figured that out over the last 2 decades. So let's continue to move forward.
Yeah, I mean it's a great point, Tyler. It truly does replace Excel and wikis and a lot of documentation on both sides, right? I mean, I can see the blue team developing some of their own documentation into our runbooks in here as well, that hey, every time you configure this server or anytime you see this finding, like here's maybe a link to the documentation to go fix it, and then by the way, here's a runbook that you can go test
and correlate the efficiencies of your return on investment for tools, right? Like end over end, as you're trying to evaluate tools and or you're looking to move to a new tool, you can evaluate the effectiveness on your next pen test. Like we were catching this before and now we are not. Is that a configuration issue? Is that a tooling issue? And we've spent this X capital expense on this. Therefore, it should be catching this, so we can push back on either a vendor or get some better configuration around it. So overall, again, it's amazing.
Tyler, that is the shared runbook too. Like here's a runbook for, that's shared by the red and blue team into that purple team scenario, that every time you run into that, hey, when the blue team goes to check if they're configuring something for the first time, maybe setting up for an automated deployment, they're using an updated runbook. And by the way, the red team has gone, I want you to add these couple of things to your checks, in that runbook when you do X, Y, Z. So, I mean, that really speaks, I think, Dan, to that collaboration that you've built into the platform that is so key when we've got so much on our plates, so much attack surface to both attack and defend.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, there's so much to keep track of. Hopefully, having a centralized place to be able to start storing this information, helping to train up the next junior analysts, the next junior testers, really is our goal, is like keeping everybody improving, staying current on the different tactics and techniques, really is an important step forward in organizations improving their security posture, helping the security teams, whether they're consultants or internal, to know, hey, these are the things that we really should be testing the organization against. And these are like from the MITRE perspective. I mean, it's kind of like, in a sense, it's kind of like, hey, these are the known things. You should be able to handle these in some capacity, similar to kind of like signature-based AV, right? I mean, it's like, this is a known thing, right? Then once you can do this, then let's see how we can do against the more advanced, evasion techniques and things like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, so I'm thinking about, how much are you doing in the way of searching, indexing what's in the runbook, so that, if I tell somebody, go find the one where we dealt with Fin 3, they'd get it easily, as opposed to, seems like you've got a lot of cross-referencing stuff going on.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of like searching on the actual engagements that were executed, it's based on the title. You'll be able to search on like the techniques or tactics that were included in that, and then same thing on the analytics side. We tag everything in PlexTrack. It's the handy way to categorize data within our analytics platform. So I mean, like Tyler mentioned, you could tag things as like, hey, this finding was related to our EDR, or this one was related to our firewall. And so then you can start to show trends and metrics on, hey, your EDR is not, you continue to have 100 findings per engagement, where all of them are based on your EDR not catching it, right? And so now you can go back to the vendor and say like, hey, we've ran this like 100 times, what's going on? So I guess the short answer is, yeah, you can search a lot of different ways to find the different tactics and techniques that were executed in certain certain runbooks, as well on the analytics side.
Is there like scoring and weighting in there, so that maybe I missed that, so that I could pull that together and say, I want you to pull out a 80% threat level, kind of run book versus a 100% threat level run book?
Not within the runbooks themselves. I mean, but we could certainly take that back. I mean, where that would really come into play would be, I guess it didn't. Let's go back to the one that was completed here. So if we go to the report, this also, you can come in and you can change the severity. You can add a score, whether that's a general score, so you could say, this is 100, right? And so then you have some weighting to it and things like that. So there's all kinds of ways to really organize the data, and we try to leave it as flexible to the users as possible.
Well, that's good. I mean, we used to do a lot of like sort of, I don't know, tabletopping of how much of a threat surface does this represent? Is it worth, is it worth fixing? Is it not something we need to look at? So that I like that idea, that being able to sort of categorize out these things and say, this is a set for, customers that have extreme risk, and these are ones that are not so much. Sure.
Yeah. And the nice thing too is that you can build as many runbooks as you need, right? So you could even have those as, different, hey, we're only going to run this one for insurance companies because, they have these specific.
I did that. So I had different, because we had different clients, and we were always just flying around to these different clients and looking at what their risks were and trying to evaluate them. And a lot of times they had the same exact stuff, but they had different budgets, they had different priorities, and they had all kinds of different reasons that they say, we just aren't going to fix this, and I can't make you fix it if you don't want to, and you don't have the money to fix it. So it would be nice to have, I can see that I could do that there.
Yeah. That actually brings up one other feature that I don't know. It's not really related to Runbooks, but we did release a substatus capability within PlexTrack. So you could say won't fix, right?
Right.
and so that could be part of the workflow now. Like I'm going to put this finding in the won't fix category, but it gets into that philosophical debate of does that mean it's closed? To me, it's still open, right? But or risk accepted, is that a closed at that point? We're not.
For me, it was. As a consultant, that's my liability is to tell them that this is a risk. If they choose to accept that risk or ignore it, I'm glad there's a record there that I said, here it is, and they said, we're not going to fix it. Yeah. And later, if they decide to say, well, the reason we got taken out is because of this, I can go, well, I told you, and here it is.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I don't think you should give up or let down your clients or run around or desert them.
Well, all right. See ya. I quit.
I'm out.
I quit. I'm out. That's just it.
You definitely shouldn't desert them, Doug.
That's classic. Never gonna give you up, baby. Never gonna run around and do it.
I hate you so much.
Now it's stuck in your head, isn't it? You just can't.
It is.
You're just no stranger to love.
I can feel Rick looking at me from somewhere here.
You know the game, and so do I.
He's here somewhere. Yeah, it's there. It is. Yeah,
there's Rick
somewhere.
Doug, I'm just trying to tell you how I'm feeling.
I'm trying to be serious here.
Never gonna desert you.
Did you guys see this one? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about right now. It's like you're in our Slack channel, Dan. Yes. Yeah. Because now we basically all just rickrolled ourselves.
Yeah.
Basically, is what happened.
We've been rickrolled. Yeah. Life is beautiful.
Well, Dan, awesome features as usual. And really valuable. Back to Tyler's point. I don't know how much you're paying Tyler, but it's not enough. You should obviously pay
someone in Discord saying, "Is Tyler on the payroll here?"
I am not.
He is not.
For the record.
He is not.
Dan, thank you again for appearing on Paul Security Weekly. For everyone who wants to check out the product, make sure you go to securityweekly.com/PlexTrack. Dan, thanks again.
Hey, thanks a bunch, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Security news is coming up next. Stay tuned.